So with that, we're going to move on to Glenn Challenger. Hey, Glenn, you about ready? All right, so Glenn works for Goodwill Industries. Now, I know you guys can travel around the state and find Goodwill Industry facilities all around the state. So Glenn is actually the Veteran Service Manager with Goodwill Industries. He's going to talk about their projects. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Glenn Challenger.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody can hear me, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right, my name is Glenn Challenger, Senior. I always have to say that senior part because there's a young man that works in Columbus that has my name. And sometimes what ends up happening, he gets emails and everything, and he has to come home and say, hey, Dad, I need you to let your people know that I am not you. So what did I do? I'm a 23-year Army veteran. I served 23 years in the Army in different roles. Been deployed about 10 times to lots and lots of places. Some I can tell you, some I cannot tell you because you know what the result of that will be. My last duty station was right here at Fort Benning, Georgia. When I retired, like a lot of soldiers, my transition was very unique. It was unique because I was on leave, on vacation, and my S1, which is my HR, called me and said, I need you to come into the office. So I went into the office and he says, you have 2 weeks to retire. What that meant for me, no leave, no vacation time, it took me exactly 1 week to separate from active duty. And if I did not separate from active duty, I would have lost every single benefit that I worked 23 years for. Why? Because somebody in their infinite wisdom made a mistake and transitioned me and also PCS me, permanent change of station, to New York at the same time. So while I was supposed to be going to New York, I was actually supposed to be retiring. What that experience taught me is that I knew nothing about transitioning from the military. Everything I did transitioning, I did in civilian clothes. I was already out of the military, okay? After I went through that process, I sat home for 3 months wondering what I would do with my next life because all the plans that I had to transition were out the window. So now, instead of being on vacation, enjoying my 23 years and all the savings that I now had to go find a job to support my 2 kids that were about to go to college. My very first job when I transitioned paid me $10.88. Now, if you know anything about a retiree, that is not enough money to support a family, okay? Again, though, what I learned is that if you put in the work, you'll be successful. The Army taught me everything I needed to know to be where I am today. So what do I do? Okay, as a Veteran Services Manager, I speak to transitioning service members, veterans, their family members. My sole purpose is to help them find employment. Okay, I graduated from Troy University with a HR degree, and I also graduated from Strayer University with a master's degree in human resource management. Okay, I've been doing this for about 10 years. I love what I do. In connecting service members, transitioning service members, veterans, and family members to employment, I connect to employers that are willing to hire veterans, okay? And some of the things I'm going to tell you today, you've already heard them, okay? So I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of it. So I want somebody to tell me, as an employer, what do you look for in an employee? What are some of the attributes you look for in an employee? Dependability. What else? College degree.
They're willing to learn.
Willing to learn.
Communication skills.
Communication. All of those are attributes you look for in an employee. Guess who has all those attributes in one person? A veteran. Okay. So veterans are highly desirable candidates for most civilian jobs because of the skills they learn during their time in uniform, not despite them. The United States military is, by all accounts, the greatest leadership development institution in the world, and the career success veterans experience after joining the civilian workforce is a testament to that claim. And this is Lita Citrone. She's the CEO of Lida 360. Okay? So all those attributes that you just talked about are right there. Transitioning service members and veterans bring them with them every time they leave the military. One of the things that was brought up earlier is for employers to understand that all those things that they bring to the table help you in being a successful organization. Okay? All right. So after leaving the military, it's hard for someone to talk about their military experience. Okay? There are terms that are used in the military. I was an infantryman. Okay? I spent 23 years doing a whole bunch of things that had nothing to do with being an infantryman. No, I did not go off to Afghanistan and Iraq and just take out people, okay? I was a recruiter, I was an instructor, I was a logistics specialist or logistics manager. So I've covered a gambit of a lot of things, okay? Once I separated from active duty, I was an HR supervisor, I was a counselor, I was a VA benefits advisor, working over here with Eddie Perez. So I've touched a whole lot of different things when it comes to transitioning. So one of the things that I do is helping employers understand what a service member or veteran is saying when they send you a resume. I work at Goodwill. We do a lot of things at Goodwill. Goodwill is not only about the store, okay? You don't just drop off donations, okay? We have other things that we do. We have an IT department that we have a internship for veterans. We have a training academy that provides certifications for anybody. If a veteran comes in, we use WIO funds and other grants to pay for those. They do not have to pay out of their own pocket for those, okay? We do referrals to the community. If a veteran comes in and says, hey, Mr. Challenger, I have an interview tomorrow. He gets a card, he goes over to the Goodwill store, and he can purchase a suit for his interview the very next day, okay? So, this is one of the things that we see a lot as veterans are transitioning from active duty. So, this is an 11 Bravo infantryman. He's a non-commissioned officer in Charlie Company 128 Infantry Regiment, and he was there from January 1996 to the present. I tell you that, you ask me, what in the world are you talking about? Okay? So, we translate this so maybe you will be able to understand a little bit different. As the NCOIC, non-commissioned officer in charge of 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company 128 Regiment, I was responsible for health, moral, and welfare of 35 soldiers. I was also responsible for $40 million worth of equipment, including AN, PVS-14, M4s, 249s, 50 cal, and other equipment. Does anybody understand what I just said? Absolutely not. Well, some of you do. Okay? Come on. But to an HR recruiter, this is a foreign language. When my HR recruiters call me and say, hey, Mr. Challenger, we need you to come over to the office, or I have to send you a resume because I have no idea what this person is saying, and I think they'll be a great candidate. Every veteran or spouse that comes to Goodwill and sees me, I try to hire them at Goodwill, regardless of what they do, regardless of who they are. I always try to hire them at Goodwill, okay? I will sit down, I will go over their resume one-on-one, tell them what they need to put in, what they need to take out, okay? We also, again, work with employers, so I know exactly what those employers are looking for in the resume. So we can sit down, work on that resume, so it doesn't look like this, okay? So, let's go ahead and translate this. So this person is actually an operations manager. He worked for the United States Army at Fort Bend, Georgia, from August 2016 to the present. He supervised and managed the organization's daily operations to include monitoring, training, and performance of 35 mission-critical staff. Did y'all understand that?
Yes.
Okay? effectively maintain accountability of weapons and equipment in excess of $40 million with zero losses. Develop and implement new rules and regulations that enhance the organization's ability to maintain quality employees. Again, we just took this and turned it into this. Okay? But again, it was said earlier, if the HR recruiter does not understand that this is what's being said, you just lost a potentially great candidate. All right, so one of the things that we always talk about when clients come in is talking about the job that you're applying for, why you're applying for that position. That's very important for a transitioning serviceman, okay? Sometimes they only just want some money. That's all they want. They want a job because they got out of the military, they don't know what they want to do, and they want to find a job. They want to go to work. Generally, the average veteran is going to find about 4 jobs before they find their career. Know this, okay? Does the job fit your skill set? What do you know about the organization? Always make sure you do research, okay? Familiarize yourself with the organization before the interview. That's very important for a veteran, okay? Every position, especially this one, that I have been in, I knew enough about the organization before my interview. I did 3 interviews for this position, 3. I knew who the players were at the table before my interview because I Googled everybody in the organization. I can tell you, my supervisor right now was born in Jamaica, but spent most of her adult life in New York. I know 2 of my directors, one of them is a military spouse. You can connect to all those people if you do your research. Now, one of the things that I noticed during my interview is not about, well, what do you know about Goodwill? How do you connect to those people? I'm from the British Virgin Islands, okay? So I can connect with my Jamaican friend that's across the table, even though she wasn't my friend at the time, okay? I connect with a military spouse. I can connect with the Navy veteran, that's the project manager. I can connect with the Puerto Rican, because I can habla little español, okay? That's sitting across the table. If you do that research and encourage those veterans that you have to sit down, do their research before the interview, it'll help them, okay? Have you thoroughly looked over the job description? Again, if you're HR, you know why we do PDs, position description, okay? Within the position description, if you know that that veteran has the ability to do the job, give them the opportunity to do the job. They may surprise you. Do you have a list of questions for employers? Okay, one of the questions that I always ask, we do mock interviews to prepare our veterans for the actual interview. One of the questions I always tell my veterans to ask at the end, what does a day-to-day operation look like in my position? You would be surprised that you'll get all the questions answered that you need. If you just simply ask, what does it look like if I were in this position? When I asked that question, I got a tour of the entire organization. I knew I was hired that day, okay, because nobody else got a tour. Okay. All right, so a couple things about translating a position, okay? So we have commanders, a commander, you know, it could be a battalion commander, brigade commander, company commander, okay? There could be a director, there could be a senior manager. An executive officer could be an executive officer, or there could be a deputy director. Field grade officer, they could be an executive or manager. A warrant officer could be a department manager, senior NCO, senior operations supervisor, a first sergeant, which runs an organization. They can be a personnel manager, supply sergeant, could be logistics manager, logistics director. So those are some of the things to translate when you're talking about position. So if you see somebody put on their resume, I was the first sergeant of Charlie Company 128, all they mean is they're personnel manager. They manage about 135, 140 personnel, okay? Okay, different resume formats, y'all already know about that, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. Awards and decorations, okay. One of the things I tell my clients, do not put awards and decorations on civilian resumes. Now, if you were Employee of the Month, great. If it was 5 years ago, nobody cares. Okay? But when it comes to awards, here's one of the examples, okay. GCMDL is what we call a Good Conduct Service Medal a Good Conduct Medal in the Army, okay? You receive this award every 3 years, really for good behavior, we put it that way, okay? So I go in for my interview, and they say, what is a GCMDL? And I explain that it's for every 3 years of good service. I've been in the military for 9 years. I only put 2. What is the assumption? Okay. So be wary of putting awards on your resume, okay? One of the things that I put up here, if your certification is a sniper, there's no need to place that on your resume, okay? Of course, there's an exception. If you're going to be a police officer, okay, you might want to put that on there if you're trying to be a SWAT, okay? Or you're going to federal law enforcement, okay? Excuse me. One of the other things I do that my specific focus is on federal resume writing. Everybody here knows what a Schedule A disability is in federal employment? Okay? That just means that there are folks that have disabilities that can bypass the entire federal system and get direct hire. Okay? We work with those at Fort Benning as well. So if you know anybody looking for federal employment, that's also available. All right. First impression, everybody talked about the interview process a little bit earlier. They were talking about that. Handshake, of course we don't do that anymore. We do the fist bump, the shoe tap, that kind of thing. The handshake says a lot about you. Here's what I will tell you about interviews when you're talking about veterans. Allow them to be themselves during the interview. One of the things I always start off an interview is with this. This is a conversation. As much as I want to know about you, you are going to want to know about the organization. And it puts them at ease. Okay, my supervisor, she's very picky with her executive assistant. That position was open for about 3 months. Okay, we had people come in, they laugh, they joke. We do what we call popcorn interviews. Okay, whoever pops up and asks a question, okay, they ask a question and the candidate responds. Those are pretty good interviews because it kind of brings out people's personalities. Okay, there's no formal way to do it. Okay. Exude confidence in your body language. The interviewers instinctively trust what they see. Here's another thing I'm going to tell you. In your interview, when it comes to veterans, it's not always what you see. It's not always about the experience. You may have somebody that has 15 years of experience, and you may have a veteran that comes in and has no experience. He has integrity, his character, he's honest, all those other attributes that they bring to the table. And I can tell you right now, I've sat down and did interviews and hired folks that have no experience at all and been in an organization for 7 years. I've had people that have 15 years of experience and they don't last 90 days. Okay, so just be mindful of that. I'm not going to talk about that, interviews. I will talk about this. Okay, ONET was mentioned already, military translator. I'm not going to beat all that. Okay, my next move for veterans is a website, Career One Stop, and of course, Veteran Service Management. I work with quite a few people that are sitting in this room. Charles, Eddie, John, I've seen him, quite a few times at Fort Benning. All of these are tools to help you translate a military or service member's resume. The one thing that's not up here that I am going to harp on is a personality test. Why is a personality test important? It is important because it allows you to understand the personality of the veteran and how to react to whatever they do and say. We have 700 employees at Goodwill. This guy standing in front of you is the most introverted person out of those 700 employees. But you would know that until I told you that, right? There's a very big difference when I was in the military and I put my uniform on versus when I took my uniform off and I was dad. You have to understand that when you are engaging a veteran. It was said earlier about organizations having somebody that they can put in front of a veteran that understands that veteran so that when they're going through whatever it is they're going through, they have somebody they can lean on. That's important. A lot of organizations do not have that. So if you have veterans that come in, I encourage you, figure out a way, a team, a department, or something. Because even as they go through onboarding, they do it differently. There's some veterans that can take their uniform off, never look at it again. And there's some veterans that wear their uniform 10 years later as a civilian. Please keep that in mind when you're talking about hiring veterans or you are seeking those veterans to hire. Here's my contact information. If you ever want to get a hold of me, gchallenger@wizard.org. My office number and my cell phone number, they're always on. I tell all my clients, you can call me on my cell phone at 5:30. After 5:30, not picking up. Unless you send me a message, you can text me, because I deal with a lot of veterans. As far as the VA, homeless veterans and things of that nature that have issues and concerns. Again, if you have any questions anybody have any questions for me? No? All right, thank you for